I got a new puff screen to help with my P's.
Puff, puff.
When we were pushing P's, it was particularly painful. Sorry.
Here we go. In a 3, in a 2, in a 1.
Yeah. Woo. Ooh. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
This is Hubert Tito, and I'm here to tell you that Third Degree the podcast is brought to you by Soccer 90. Shop Soccer 90 for all of your FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Watch for new MLS gear landing the entire month of February as we all anxiously await to see the new kits. All Third Degree listeners receive 20% off their purchase when they use the code Third Degree at checkout on soccer90.com. Some exclusions may apply.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode. Cue me that number, Buzz.
147.
Of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, it's me, Peter. And as normal, first off, Dan Crook. Howdy, Dan.
Oh, what amazing weather we're having. This is just like home.
Did you have bangers and mash for breakfast?
Oh, I wish. No, it was work calls all morning, so no breakfast at all.
What exactly are bangers and mash? I know mash is potatoes. Bangers are like a sausage.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just sausages, mashed potatoes, and gravy.
It sounds very nutritious.
Very English.
Very
Hey,
English.
it warms you up. That's all that matters.
I'm sure it does, yes, and clogs you up too. And there was the dulcet tones of your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of thirddegree.net, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hi, Peter. I would make a calling in joke today, but I'm sure everybody knows that we're all at home. So,
Yes, we had the winter day. We were recording this on Thursday. We all sat through. Did everybody get a pretty hefty, at least brief snow storm? Storm sounds very rude or wrong to put it that way, but dousing of snow. You had 2?
Yeah, it was fun going to the store at lunch, just watching people flailing around on the road, not able to drive. It's the hell, Texas.
Haven't left the house. I had the biggest, fluffiest flakes today. It was great.
yeah, I had big, fat, wet flakes with it. I got a good, inch and a half layer outside. It looks very cool. Very exciting.
It is great. At least it turned out not to be the death storm from last year, so we're all pleased about that. Buzz, I was thinking, since we don't have a ton of stuff today, on the heels of a mega pod last week, and it's probably starting to get that time of year, especially with all the news, that you're probably attracting some new listeners to the pod since it's free and anybody can access it. I thought maybe we'd take this moment for you to explain the opportunities to subscribe to your Patreon subscription stuff and what they can get for the different levels of being a Patreon.
Yeah, by the way, you weren't kidding about last week. That was an hour 50, over hour 50, which I think was our record, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, we have a Patreon service. The idea is that if you enjoy our work, that you would support us. I jokingly call it the PBS method, which is basically how it works. If you like what we do, whether it be the podcast or the blog, throw us a little money if you like. Now, as a benefit to supporting us, we give you a little something, and the 2 things you can get, and everyone that joins the Patreon gets what I call third degree burns.
An umbrella?
No umbrellas, no merch, no free merch.
Okay.
I can't afford that. What you get is free pieces of my brain, basically. I do these things called third degree burns. They're like little mini podcasts, anywhere from 2 minutes to like 8 minutes long on a singular topic. It's not every day. Like it won't be on a day we do a podcast, for example, but it's close to every day or every other day on some sort of topic related to FC Dallas tangentially. Sometimes it can be Academy or U.S. soccer, but it's always got a FC Dallas angle. And then if you reach certain higher levels, you get certain other perks. The most notable of which is there is a level at which you get access to our Discord server, which is a very obviously private community of like-minded people that support us and are really interested in FC Dallas. And so it's a really nice level of discussion going on in there. All things FC Dallas related as well. So those are the main 2 primary perks at various levels. And But as usual, 99% of what we do is available for everybody. But the reason we left the Dallas Morning News was because of the paywall. So we're not doing that again. And we hope everybody enjoys our work and continues to contribute.
So that's the PBS method. If you like the podcast and the blog, then spend.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't have like specific tiers of money, do you? Like you can donate however much you want.
Well, yeah, there are tiers, but you can pick any amount you like. There's a discount if you sign up for a year at a time. That kind of thing applies. Yeah. Okay. You can pick any level of contribution you wish to give, and there are perks for various tiers in there, but you don't have to use the tiers. You can use whatever number you want. So I don't know if it'll let you do less than $1, but definitely $1 is the minimum, I think. So, there are many people that support at that level, and there are many people that support higher than that. So I appreciate all of it.
Well, considering this is your 25th year of covering this club, I think now is a more appropriate time than ever that anybody that's been consuming your content, either on the long term or new to it, should consider donating some money in your Patreon account. I think that would be money well spent. And I will also vouch for the daily burns. The audio burns are always good content that generate lots of positive feedback. But the Discord server is also a really fantastic community of people that ask good questions, and there's always good conversations, and it's pretty chill too. So
good memes too.
And there's always some good memes. And
yeah,
there's also a nice off-topic channel in there that we get to talk about our favorite TV shows and movies and stuff, like the new episode of Book of Boba Fett, which is mind-meltingly awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay. So as we said, we don't have a ton to talk about because the club is down in Florida doing their own training, and they have not provided a lot of information. It does feel like, I don't know if this is like a budget thing, which feels very counter to everything else that's been going on the last few weeks, or if this is a COVID thing, or they're trying to just keep things on the down low. Do you have any sense as to why they've been so hush-hush about this trip?
Well, I think this new coach, Nico Estevez, is very much a keep everything on the down low kind of guy. He's concerned with the amount of information that gets out and what kind of information that gets out. At least that's the impression I get from various people. Now, they are also only going for a very short period of time, relatively speaking. They are going to be there only for like 6 or 7 days. I considered for a moment going too, but I made the same decision. It's like the cost of me going would not have been worth the going when the first game was going to be against the US U20s, which is a terrible game. And there was only going to be one quality game played against Orlando. I think it's on Saturday. So you combine that with all the big moves they've been doing, Jesus and Arriola and Velasco and all that stuff. They probably just decided it was more important to be here and be all in for those announcements, I imagine.
Okay, well, so since we don't get to talk a lot about that, we should at least start by talking about the good news up front, which is the Alan. By the way, I saw him in a video pronounce his last name Velasco. Did you guys see that?
I did not, but I saw it mentioned.
Yeah, so it was, I don't know if you saw it, Dan, but he clearly pronounced his last name Velasco, and I guess that is an Argentinian thing. They pronounce S's as C's or something. I don't know.
I remember when Ezekiel Cerediano was here, I think it was Oscar would always say, like, Argentines just have their own, like, mini dialect almost, just the way they pronounce certain letters. I think you could probably see it with Facu when he does his, that recording they have of all the players, and he sort of says Facu, and it's like, is it a U or is it O? Well, it's Facundo, and the name is Facu spelled with a U. But and I like, Buzz made the point. It's weird because it sounds like he says Faco.
Yeah.
Like and it does sound that way.
I remember that when Oscar was here, there were like 10 different ways that you would say his name, Oscar, depending on what country the person was from South America, their version of Spanish. And they're all tiny little differences. Like, like in American wise, we would say Oscar, but then it's Oscar or Oscar, or there were just so many variations. I never knew which one was right. Andy used to try and tell me, and I could never remember. But it's, all those countries are so big and so different that you get different pronunciations. So it's not surprising that he's got a different pronunciation for his name than certainly I knew it wasn't going to be Velasco. That's, Americanized version.
Well, don't get me started on Jesus Ferreira, because his dad, David, used to pronounce it differently than Jesus does, and it's a whole barrel of fish.
Jesus
whatever.
says it differently whether he's talking English or Spanish as well.
Yeah. Edwin Cerrillo does the same thing. He says his name different ways too, depending on who he's talking to.
Well, name pronunciation aside, it does feel all very strange and weird that Dallas and the Hunts went out and spent an insane amount of money for a 19-year-old winger from Argentina. Now, Buzz, and again, this is the reason why I asked you to talk about the Discord is specifically for this reason, because in your Discord channel, you have been expressing a bit of a concern about Alan and his arrival here that you haven't really been talking about publicly, but I'm wondering if you'd be willing to kind of express here on the pod what it is maybe you're slightly just kind of red flagging.
Oh, well, there's actually 3 different things I'm red flagging.
Oh, okay.
not to be a buzzkill. Hashtag buzzkill. The first of which is just the timeline. Visas these days take longer than they used to. Some of that is because the player has to do certain things and you have to be in the right country to go get it. And also, more importantly, you just never know. There have been visas that have taken months. Sometimes they take 2 weeks, but sometimes they take months. So there's no guarantee that he's going to get here in a week or 2. It might be 3, 4 or longer, so there's no guarantee he'll be here by the time the season starts. The second thing is that he's 19, and this will feed into the third thing. And despite the fact that you get really excited about the things he's done, you are talking about a transition to a different league, and we should not expect, I don't think, a player to walk in and be an MLS MVP superstar. You're talking about an adjustment for play style and for his age. It won't be easy for him, because he's going to be in a new environment, a new living situation, a new training situation. He won't know anybody and all those things. We always talk about taking half a season to adjust. You can look at Obrian just last year, for example. For the first half of the season was terrible, and then he figured the league out and got better, right? Even if you don't like him.
Air quotes, better.
Better is better. Whether it's still not great, but it's better. He quit doing a lot of the diving, right? He made an adjustment. So, and the third thing, and this is actually the bigger one, I think the one you're alluding to, is that at least initially and all throughout his reporting, the subtext, not his reporting on him, the subtext coming out of Argentina was that he really didn't want to do this move. There was lots of talk about how he's a lifelong fan of this team he was with, how much he loved the team. He was only doing this move because the team needed him to, how MLS wasn't good enough or wasn't the thing he was expecting. The fans are all mad that they're only getting, combined 10 million and not the 20 million they thought he was worth. Discussion points like that all led to this vibe. Some people flat out saying it, but also this just vibe coming through his stuff that he really didn't want to be here in Frisco and with FC Dallas. Now, the stuff the club has put out since then, I think is pushing back against that idea. He said he's excited in that little video they put out, again, spin, whatever. The club has put out things about why this is a great stepping stone for him and stuff like that. But this all relates back to this idea that the club started this, whatever you call it, life wellness program or division, which I think is a really good idea because of the fact you're taking a kid, again, 19 years old. You have no idea what his social life is like in terms of reliance on family, what kind of his living situation he is back home. Is he been on his own back home? Does he have a serious girlfriend, which has been a problem when they can't get in the country for both Ned Yakov and Cobra had this same problem. So you don't know what his situation is going to be. He's going to be a young, effectively just barely not a teenager living in a new country, making probably millions of dollars with no parental supervision or life coach supervision or no girlfriend to provide a stability for all we know. So there are lots and lots of red flags to be aware of here. Even when you're paying the kind of money you're paying, you're still talking about a teenage kid, barely not a teenage kid, coming to a new place and a new team and a new environment where he has no idea anything. And you don't even know if is there even a good Argentine culture in Dallas somewhere? I don't know of one, but I'm not Argentine, so I couldn't really tell you. So I think people should be aware of that kind of thing and cognizant of that kind of thing, and not expect the kid to walk in the door scoring a goal a game. There's going to be other things that are going to impact his arrival, and we should temper our expectations because of it.
Dan, you've got lots of experience, I suspect, with visa stuff and just trying to move from one country to another. And I also think back to the whole Mauro Diaz experiment, because there are elements to this that do make you wonder. There were a long period of time where Mauro Diaz just looked like he wanted to be anywhere else other than here.
I mean, remember when they brought in Maxi in part to, make Mauro feel a little more at home, and then that wasn't quite enough, so they brought in Rosales as well, and it was a long ramp up, and he still was never fully comfortable here. It was maybe his personality as much as anything, but that's hard, right? 19 years old, and you're kind of like, I'm in my breakout season with my club. I'm scoring against River Plate. I'm, maybe like edging towards the idea of a European move in a couple of years. What? Go to the US? But what?
Yeah.
It's,
Dan, I don't think you were here. I don't think you were here back then, but Buzz, you definitely were. Do you remember that very first night out at SMU? It was a preseason game when Joselito Vaca first showed up with the team. Do you remember that night?
I remember it on a macro level. I don't know what.
I'll never forget it. So for those who are new to the pod or don't remember the back in the Dallas Burn days, Dallas brought in this very young Bolivian midfielder named Joselito Vaca, and he was a little tiny dude. He was quite a soccer player, but he was very young. I think he was 19, maybe less than that. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but he was
fresh out of Tauichi.
Yeah, tiny kid, and they were having a preseason game. I think it was a preseason game out at SMU, and he just sat on the bench by himself. Like, he didn't know anybody. Nobody knew him, and it just looked very, very lonely. And every time one of these kids from South America come up here, I think about that, about how much things are probably going to have to change to help guys like that get acclimated. Oscar, I think you may have mentioned this, Buzz. Oscar used to talk about the time it takes for these guys to acclimate to just living here, much less playing here.
Yeah.
So when we talk about this with Velasco, I also think that's part of the reason why, as we talked about last week, the signing of Arriola is such a huge deal, because you're getting another guy in the team that already knows everything about MLS and playing in it, and is, going to kick off on day one.
Yeah, I would expect Arriola to have a much quicker impact. There's a big difference between, just as an example, Franco Jara came here by himself initially. But then by the time when his family actually got here, and his wife got here, and his kids got here, and then he has a house, and he's buying a boat, and he's out on the lake with his family, and they're in the backyard grilling, all of a sudden things are much better, right? Mm-hmm. And so we use these examples of, in very recent times, Ned Yalkov and Cobra, coming here and just being absolutely flabbergasted at how different Frisco, let alone Dallas, Frisco is compared to whatever European, city you've been living in, which if any of you all have been to Europe, Peter, you certainly would know this, I think. And Dan, obviously you're from there. It's a very different culture and environment than is Frisco, or Dallas by itself, and these guys just don't always adjust right away, and what their situation off the field is can have a massive impact. Arriola, is from here, has played for DC, he's played for LA, he's certainly been to Dallas many times. He'll know what it's all about. I'll use another example is the new North Texas coach, Pamadou Ka. He actually said in the interview he did when he left his previous team is that Dallas was the place that he'd identified during his playing career that he wanted to live when he retired. I think he said it was his wife, I think. I don't want to speak out of turn if it's not married. They had identified Dallas as the place they wanted to go, and that was part of why he's so excited to be here, is because he always wanted to be here. That's totally different than some of these other circumstances, and it'll make a huge difference on how quickly you're going to see a guy impact Arriola versus Velasco.
Yeah, I think what a lot of other people may not know is just how slow a pro athlete's life is. If you're a single dude living in a strange city, you're only training for so much of a day. And the rest of the day for many people is just sitting around with nothing but time on your hands. So if you're new here and you've never driven in this, in this area, you don't know, or maybe you don't even know how to drive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or just the whole culture shock has got to be a big deal. So when we hear about Velasco and his if there in fact is any hesitancies on his part about coming here or concerns, hopefully those are things that'll get washed away quickly when he gets to start practicing with the team, which leads me to this, Buzz. Do we have any idea when we can expect him to show up?
Which one, Arriola or Velasco?
Velasco.
No clue. Like I said, that's the visa. You don't know. Arriola, I imagine, will be here any day, because of the fact that, as soon as he's done with the national team. I'll tell you a funny story related to this idea. I've often wondered, like, if you're into biometric consistency, the idea that if the games are at 7:00, you should train at 7:00 at night, right? That makes your performance output always consistent, biologically speaking. Well, one of the main reasons that they don't is because most of their players are teenagers or people in their low 20s. And if you train in the evening all the time, then they don't get up. They don't get up in the morning and actually live like a life. They end up sleeping later and later and later. And so that's the main reason that they train in the morning. It's because it makes the people be professional and get up in the morning and actually eat correctly and go to training and then do things in the afternoon and not just become these sloths who lay around all day. I thought that was really funny.
That is funny.
Yeah. But you can see, you can imagine, like, if you're
Yeah.
an 18-year-old kid getting paid millions of dollars and you don't have to be anywhere until 7 p.m., why would you get up at 6 a.m.?
Hell,
it's
if you were one of
Yeah.
these guys making $24,000 a year, why would you get up at,
Yeah, like during the summer, like the training starts at 8, or you got to be up there by 6:30 or 7 in the morning. So, they're making those kids get up really early all the time, and you can't live a party lifestyle and do that not consistently without burning out. So it's like, that's all part of it. They almost force these kids to live normal lives by having them be up there training in the morning and then be involved afterwards in other things,
Well, hopefully it happens sooner than later. And you mentioned Arriola, Buzz, and I'm going to turn my focus to Dan and ask him if Dan took any time to watch either of the last 2 U.S. men's national team games.
I watched the second half of the... No, I didn't actually. No, I haven't watched the last 2. I thought about it, and then I had stuff that I needed to do yesterday.
Well, I wondered because aforementioned Mr. Arriola made an appearance in the game against Canada, and I wondered if you saw his performance, because I know you're
He had
eager
that
to see him.
overhead kick, right?
Yeah, he
I
almost.
saw that, but that was about it.
When I thought that was going in, the first thing I thought about was you.
Hey, yeah, that'd be great. I want to see him do well. I just have not had an opportunity to see that.
Okay. Well, anyway, he played in the game. I thought he added a little bit of a spark. It was interesting seeing him play. I thought he was going to bag an overhead kick to at least, I think that at that point would have tied the game 1-1, but it was not to happen, and that was all we saw of Mr. Arriola until we get to see him training with the team. So, Buzz, any other insight on Paul as he heads towards Dallas's training?
No, other than consider that the coach obviously has a long established relationship with him. And given that Paul's 26, you're looking at a guy that's entering the prime of his career, 26, 27, 28, 29. The next 4 years or so are going to be his peak performance of his career. So you already have him locked in. You know exactly what you're getting pending health. Obviously he can play into form and be hotter or colder, but generally speaking, you know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly what you're paying for, and you can be very reliably consistent in your expectation of what he's going to bring to you on the field. That's massively different than Velasco. We're going to try and use that correct pronunciation for him, where you're talking about a 19-year-old kid, where he's going to continue to improve for the next 7 years or so until he hits his peak. And so part of what you're paying for with him is not, and this is the same as when FC Dallas sold Pepe, part of what you're paying for is not how good he is now. What you're paying for is the idea of what he'll be worth to you and in a future sale as he continues to improve until he's 26 and hits his peak window. So, you don't expect Mauro Diaz at his peak at 27 or David Ferreira at his peak at 27, 28 winning MVPs. You're talking about a 19-year-old kid. He's 3 years younger than Shabok Shon, just for an example. I mean, he's younger than Jesus. He's younger than Thomas Roberts, younger than Brian Reynolds. Yeah, way younger than Paxton, 3 or 4 years younger than Paxton. So, we should all be super excited about the paradigm change that Dallas is now spending crazy money. But you cannot expect that kid. It's not fair to expect that kid to walk in and be an MVP. He is a DP because you're paying him a bunch of money based on his potential, and you'd like to think that he will be impactful. But to expect him to be that way in February when the kickoff on the 26th is completely unfair because A, he might not even be here, and B, he just will need some time. I guarantee you he will need some time. Plus, there's a mismatch potentially with the idea that if you're false nining, the way a false nine works is that that striker moves out of the center channel space, and your wings, this is why you want Arriola, you want your wings to slash into the gaps behind and into the hole to take advantage of that. I'm not sure that that's what Velasco does. He's a pick up the ball. He looks like Pulisic more to me. Drop back, pick up the ball, and run at people. And you saw the last 2 games of the United States, Pulisic was getting lost in the middle. So that's something they'll have to work on, integrating that guy into this new system as they all learn it, including Jesus and Paul, for that matter, together. And you can't count out Shun and Obrian and Khalil and some of these other guys that might still be impactful too.
I want to move to the national team and how that relates back to the upcoming Dallas season here in a second. The last thing about Velasco that I want to just throw out there is that there's a level of pressure not just on Velasco, but also on Zanata, because somehow you have to assume he was integral into getting this guy to come here and also integral in talking the Hunts into spending that amount of money. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to assume, that Andre had done a ton of homework and talked to a ton of people to make sure that this was a guy that was going to travel all the way up here and have head right with ball, as my good friend Mike Reiner would say, and not be a pouty little punk that he's unhappy and homesick. That I hope is something they had enough foresight to at least have some conversations about.
Yeah, I hope so too. And they did say that they had conversations with him and met with him and his people. And Zanata has said that, or the team said that Zanata was tracking him even before he came here, which is like 4 years back now. So that's how long he was aware of him. Listen, Zanata's track record has not been phenomenal. He's got this one now with Velasco. He's got Pease that we don't know much about coming in. We got the right back Nanu that we know very little about from Porto coming in. So we're gonna see. I think the verdict's not out yet. I mean, we like the paradigm change, but the proof is in the pudding, right? You got to be able to compete, again, this is some of this, Peter, I think too, is all this pushback on the process, right? Trying to tap the brakes a little bit. I think some of that is all related to this. They know they're going to need some time to get this whole thing cooked up, that there's still some dead weight on the roster in terms of contract value, and it's not going to happen overnight. They're not going to be in the MLS Cup this year still.
Okay, that's not breaking news.
No, but well,
I know what you mean.
Based on people's reactions on the internet, I think people are thinking they are. But I'm trying to. I think we should all we have a responsibility to try and rein people in a little bit too, because we shouldn't be trumpeting this as like sweet turnaround, first place, here we go, because that's not how we should be reading this.
Well, then we should also then talk about, what happened since we last talked. The U.S. has played 2 more games, both of which are very different. The game against Canada on a small field on turf, they looked very stagnant and poor. And then the kind of the surprise that Pepe didn't start the game against Canada. He did get some minutes towards the end. He did start the third game against Honduras last night. And played, what did he get up to? 68 minutes? When did he sub out?
I don't remember exactly. Something in that.
Yeah, somewhere middle of the second half. And I do get the sense, let me say this, there are significant portions of time in those first 2 games where I was starting to get the weird sense that something felt very familiar, and it dawned on me at that point what I felt like I had been watching was pretty much the 2019 through 2021 version of FC Dallas and Lucci Ball.
Yeah, yeah. For sure, the first game of the three, that team was looking to sit and compress. And certainly in the last one against Honduras, the same thing. That's what's so weird is like all three of those games, I thought Jesus bizarrely made the most sense to start, because if you're playing a team against a low block, unless you're going to be like 100 crosses kind of team, using a player like Jesus, which is much better at the small space movement and tiki-taka kind of play, that works to help break down a low block better. And that's also true against Canada when you went into a tighter field where they tried to compress the middle. Again, Jesus better at that tiki-taka ball movement kind of stuff. So it was weird that all three of these games, I felt like, man, you really should be going with Jesus in these games. But I did think Pepe looked better than Zardes for what that's worth against Canada. I don't know why Pepe didn't get any moves before this. There were some alleged reports that Pepe wasn't picking up the Berhalter tactics and training as much as they quite liked. Maybe I can buy that, because if he's also trying to integrate into Augsburg, he's probably got two systems trying to be pounded into his head at the same time, and that can obviously cause problems for a kid who's, trying to get the national team system and trying to get his new pro system together at the same time. So,
well, just to focus on Pepe just a little bit, I felt Pepe was a bit of a mixed bag. While I thought he was very active in making the right runs and working really hard, his first touch was pretty poor. There were a couple of moments where you're like, man, you got to hold that ball and you can't give it up there. And you do wonder if he was struggling with the cold, because it was so brutally cold last night. He also got hit in the nose, and turned out he broke his nose on that collision very shortly after the start of the game. Not a lot was going right for Pepe, and man, that is a kid that just needs to score a goal. It's somewhere, somehow. He's just got to score a goal.
Well, I'm with you. I thought he was really active, and I liked his movement. I thought it was really good. I definitely think it's the cold. I mean, he's from El Paso and Dallas, and like we're not used to that here. He's not used to that. He's not in crazy cold Germany very much yet. I don't think he's in that kind of cold. So that's what I put it down to. That and being pulled in two different directions by his new pro team and the national team being different.
So as we watch those games, Buzz, how much of what you're seeing Greg Berhalter try to institute at the national team level do you feel like we're going to end up seeing here in Dallas with his former assistant, Nico?
Oh, all of it. Yeah. It's literally the exact same system. The only difference is that you might see are going to be in personnel. Like so far, I haven't seen Estevez try the right back to center mid flip-flop thing, but Berhalter seems to have given up on that too. So I don't know if that's going to come back with the national team or not. And if I see it happening with FC Dallas, I'll certainly let everybody know, but so far it hasn't been. But otherwise, it's basically the exact same system. Single pivot, with theoretically Cerrillo's going to be in that Tyler Adams or in the last game, Kellen Costa role. Paxton and right now it seems Brandon Cervania are your 2 8s and basically playing the Weston and the either Musa or last time it was De La Torre role. You got a 9 who's going to be the key term that Coach Estevez mentioned it. Like if you want to call it a false 9, I think he said, but the idea is that it's a non-static 9 where the 9 moves in and out of space and creates gaps. So whether you want to call it a false 9 or not, it's kind of a semantic, but it's that same, Pepe and Jesus both do that with the national team. One tends to do it higher than the other, but they both do the same amount of movement and drawing of defenders. And then the wingers are the same thing. Whether you're going to get a guy slashing like a Weah or a guy playing, outside in like Pulisic or not, just depends on your personnel matchups. And going out and getting Arriola and going out and getting Velasco gives you different kind of alternatives to Obrian and Schön. So you have the potential to flip-flop those bodies and get the different kinds of styles based on who you're playing. So that's exactly like so far in training we've seen from FC Dallas. It's exactly like the national team plays.
So when you watch the national team and some of the problems they were having with Pulisic, specifically Pulisic drifting inside and coming back deep and kind of clogging the middle up, specifically for Musa, which I thought was a real problem, and I was confused as to. And my assumption is that's Pulisic doing Pulisic things and going against what Greg has been trying to get him to do, and it also really affected the team playing vertically. Like that whole system seems to work so much better when they've got wingers willing to go forward. Do you feel like that's the kind of stuff that you that we should be looking for
Yeah.
with Dallas, or is Nico likely to end up having similar tactical issues he's going to have to work through?
No, I think you'll want to look more for the style of Weah or Arriola. Obviously, the way he does it with that group, the way Morris does it with that group. I think that's the idea. One of the buzzwords that Coach said to me about the wings they were looking for was being able to exploit the space that the mobile 9 is going to create, because the mobile 9 will be part of the build. And so those wings want to be cutting and slashing off of that 9. So, I don't think they want that drop deep, because you saw with the national team, Weston McKennie, like going out wide to the touchline, trying to find space because Pulisic wasn't out there and Robinson wasn't coming forward. So he was trying to compensate and go out there. And I'm like, what is he doing? Get back in the middle. But, Weston covers so much ground, it's ridiculous. And for me, that's like the big takeaway, like of the last couple of games watching, was like what they don't have is Weston McKennie. FC Dallas doesn't, and that's why I referenced on Twitter the other day that Paxson needs to be that for this team, unless they get somebody else. Paxson needs to be McKennie, but it's not just like in play. It's look at McKennie lately with the national team, the presence that he has, the grit, the leadership, the timely popping up and making a play to break the game, the box-to-box thing, the intensity. That Paxson has all of that too. So if Paxson can be their Weston McKennie, it'll make a big difference in whether the success of this team this year. And so those are the things you look for with the national team, of what Dallas doesn't have, the national team does have. And that's where if Paxson can't do that, they're going to have to get somebody else that can do that, because that's a big part of what they are right now, are those 2 8s in midfield. When Musa's on, or De La Torre was great last game. Weston is great every game. You need those dominant Kellen Acosta in there too. I mean, this last game it was a 6, but he's done this at an 8 too. Just have that authority in the middle of the field. We'll need Brandon Cervania too to be some of that, because Brandon can be a little passive sometimes in terms of exerting himself on the game, and they'll need that from those guys.
Yeah, I was wondering as I was watching this and watching last night's performance. And by the way, real quick, if you're from this area and you watch that game last night, I hope everybody is just filled with the tremendous amount of the same tremendous amount of pride I was seeing Weston and Kellen in particular out there for the national team. Those two guys bossed that game up and down. It was so great to see Kellen play that well, but to know that those are two guys from this area really leading the charge in a national team World Cup qualifier is just the coolest feeling as a native Texan and a native North Texan. I don't know. That just is my favorite part of the game last night. But as you watch that with Kellen and Weston and De La Torre, 2 8s and a 6, if you think about that with Dallas, how do you feel Dallas's 3 guys will match up? Like, who is who in that system for Dallas?
Well, it depends. Sometimes there's some variance in the game to game with those guys, but so far when we've watched Dallas in training, and I'm sure Dan could verify this as well, the 2 8s are pretty lateral. They're pretty flat. Cerrillo is the single 6. That's the Tyler Adams role. That's the Kellen Acosta role. And one of the reasons why I think Cerrillo has been getting the call ahead of Facundo this spring is because of the range that role is going to require, that ability to go sideline to sideline and cover up the back 4. Cerrillo can bring that, I think, a little more than Facundo can, that because he's younger and more mobile. So really, you can look, which one will do which is more about their character traits. Pomykal and Cervania for now are those 2 8s that are going to be in the McKennie and the Musa, or the McKennie and earlier in this year, McKennie and Kellen. It's been McKennie and De La Torre in the last game. We've even seen, somebody like a Pulisic or whatever used in there occasionally. I think it's been a long time since they tried that, but Roldan comes into that same spot. The idea is these guys that can play box to box to box and legitimately get forward and be impactful. Again, exploit that space that's going to be created by your mobile 9. But also, as you see with McKinney and Musa and those guys, they also get back and get in defensive positions because the rotations we've watched in training, there's a lot of work with the central mids, particularly the eights, needing to be able to get back and cover outside backs when they go forward. There's an emphasis so far in, yes, using attacking outside backs to get forward, but also not leaving the defense completely exposed. A lot of defensive responsibility work in the early stages of training. So big reliance on younger guys that can cover lots of ground, and sort of a uniform role from both of those dudes so far with FC Dallas, not really looking for one of them specifically to be the De Bruyne getting forward all the time. The coach wanting both of them to be like that. So big burden on both of those kids, Paul McCall and Cervania. Again, one reason why we've talked a lot about the need for another 8 on this team. They're light in that spot because other than those two guys, you're going down to the draft pick, Siki. You're looking at Nicky Hernandez. You're looking at Blaine Ferry, who's not even an FC Dallas player. So they're really light there in terms of experience in that midfield, and anybody that you can count on past Paxton and Brandon. Right now, they don't have anybody they can count on other than those two guys. And to have 2 starters only is a problem. You need somebody else in there.
All right, so Dan, you typically have your ear to the ground. Is there any word or any kind of rumors milling about as to if they are going to bring in another center midfielder, and will it apply specifically to maybe that international slot they traded for?
Well, I put my ear to the ground and then it froze and stuck to it, so that was a bad idea. I mean, that's the logical step, right? They've got Seekey's, as a guy that you'd ideally want to stash in North Texas coming off the draft. Nicky Hernandez had that dire year last year that he's really got a rebound back from, probably with North Texas. You've got to have somebody behind Brandon and Paxton, without the idea of just shifting Faku forward to kind of spread the ball about as a backup to either of them.
But we haven't heard any names being bantied about either one of you.
No, it's been weirdly quiet on that front.
Yeah, there were some guys that were linked earlier in the year, but they weren't like legitimate links. They weren't like when we saw Velasco's in Argentina. The minute he got linked, like the media there went crazy, and there were like hundreds of stories about it. Like a lot of these other guys, you see like an initial link and then nothing, and you assume like, okay, that's an agent, claiming that because he's trying to negotiate with his team. People love to use MLS teams as bargaining chips, and FC Dallas in particular, because FC Dallas is in the news right now. But, you don't go get an extra international spot now if you don't need it now. Because if you don't need it till the summer, yes, maybe you think the market might dry up. But at the same time, you could have a green card come through. You could have the summer window open and you're looking to sell somebody, maybe move some guys out. Maybe you trade somebody. There's like 5 different ways you can get an international spot cleared. So to trade now, when they're kind of expensive, that 250 full GAM is a little bit higher than in the past. It makes me think that all signs are beyond just need. Look at the fact that Paxton has to play every single game right now because there's nobody else. Combine that with going and getting the international spot. Combine that with what we know about the window. Combine that with like 5 still open roster spots. Combine that with 2 U22 initiative spots. There's just no way they're not going after something, I think.
Well, it does feel like, I at this point, with the way the offseason is gone, I guess we wouldn't be surprised by anything, but it does have that feel that they're going to end up bringing somebody from a lower level division in South America somewhere, the Vargas, Obrion, or even Barrios kind of acquisition, somebody none of us will ever have heard of before. But who they did Velasco and Arriola, and maybe they'll bring in another third name of somebody exciting. We'll see. Yeah,
that's the FC Dallas bread and butter, and the DP spots are full. By the time you have a DP spot open, it'll be a new season. So you're looking at the most. They really liked the U22 initiative thing with Schoen. They really liked how that panned out. the money savings and the ability, the talent he had, so that was one of the vibes I was told from people I knew around the club, was that they really wanted to hit that kind of mark again this winter, and we haven't seen it yet. So I've been I had my eye out looking for that kind of move to come. There hasn't really been anybody that sort of fit that analogy, but but when they were trying to get Velasco in, there were a couple people that told me that they had like 6 outstanding offers out, and we're kind of just waiting to see like who would take it and move first, and that one person even told me that they knew that 2 people were coming from South America, one of them being Velasco. So again, I don't have any names to go with any of this stuff, but all of the reading between the lines and reading of the tea leaf stuff say that something will come. And they do have almost basically a month till the season starts. So, and the window for the FC Dallas doesn't even open until February 10th. So there's plenty of time to do something in terms of getting a piece, and it doesn't even have to be by the start of the season. It could be within the first month of the season still, and still be the opening window. So, no panic to do that real fast. I still expect that there will be one.
Okay. Moving over. Now, I apologize, Buzz. Have we already talked about the scrimmage, the friendly?
No.
Okay. So, Dallas is in Florida. And as Buzz has said on this podcast in previous episodes, this is the worst preseason schedule in club history. They opened up with a friendly against the U20s, and mucking up the process is the fact that the brand new head coach also tested positive for COVID. And is it clear if he didn't travel with the team? Like, I'm confused as to what that. Dan, do you have any idea what that whole story about him testing positive, now being cleared and joining the team, blah blah blah?
No, they definitely made it sound like he was back in Dallas the other day. Let me actually pull it up because I've got the.
Yeah, just going into protocol doesn't necessarily mean you're positive, but in the news thing, the press conference this morning, he for sure said he had symptoms. Okay, that meant you were positive, and he definitely is there now. But Dan's right. There was an implication that he wasn't there for most of the week.
Huh. Well,
Dan, did you find it?
It's all very confusing. Is if he had tested positive and was in quarantine, there's no way he could have gotten on a plane to get down there. So I don't. That's a weird. That's all very mysterious. But he's now tested. He's clear and now down there with the team apparently.
Yeah, according to FC Dallas, he worked with the team today.
Okay,
or according to him,
I guess it's possible that he'd tested negative and just was, within the last couple of days and flew down, and now he's kind of MLS protocol clear as well.
Interesting. So I know that we mentioned that they had the scrimmage against the U20s. Yeah. Any reports about that game? Because I know the club wasn't actively, giving information out about it.
Yes, as far as I know, the club has put out absolutely nothing. The only information that's available is information I got, and I'll tell you what I got, which was that Dallas dominated possession. The U20s scored against the run of play in the 85th minute. Antonio Carrera, who's the younger brother of Nico Carrera. He's an FC Dallas U19 keeper. He's the one I've been saying is going to be signed this winter by FC Dallas. They just haven't announced it yet. He was with the US U20s right now, and he started and played the whole 90 minutes against FC Dallas, and he had 6 saves. Six saves is a monster game for a keeper. And I managed to dig out the lineup for Dallas, and it's kind of a mixed bag. Maurer was in goal. The back line is from left to right was Parker, who's the Generation Adidas third overall pick. Martinez at left center back. Bartlett, who's the 6th overall pick, who's the 24-year-old center back at right center back. Tuamasi at right back. Arriola was playing as the 6. Pamakal as 1-8. Siki is the other first-round draft pick, was at the other 8. By the way, I've only seen him play as an 8 with this club so far this spring. I thought he was a wing. They've only used him as an 8, and he's actually shorter than Paxton, which is amazing. Left wing is Khalil El Madkour. Hadir Omrion at the 9, because he's the closest thing to a forward, I guess, that you have in camp right now. And a kid that I called Luque, which is his Brazilian nickname. Most people actually call him Andre most of the time. Now, this is a weird one because FC Dallas listed him on the roster as a North Texas player. They identified him as that. So I wrote him down as being a North Texas guy, and all the North Texas guys that are here are training with FC Dallas. But then I had somebody else that's kind of around the team to call him a trialist. So I wonder, maybe I'm being a little paranoid, but I wonder if he is a trialist and they were trying to disguise that by claiming he's a North Texas player.
Why would they disguise it?
I don't know. Like sometimes they don't want people to know that people are trialists or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's a trialist keeper in camp and they asked me not to say his name because they don't want people to know he's here. Now he's not a keeper to get excited about. He's like a USL journeyman kind of keeper. It's like a Kyle Zobek replacement. He's 30. You shouldn't care, honestly. When you hear his name, eventually you'll be like, if he signs, you'll be like, whatever. He's a third keeper kind of guy. So he doesn't matter. But if this guy Luque is like a former U.S. youth player, I think, and maybe like he's a Brazilian type guy and he's been playing in Spain or something. He's kind of a little off the radar. So I wondered if they were trying to hide him a little bit or something. I can't think of why really, other than like sometimes they're just crazy paranoid like that. Like a good example is that on the FC Dallas preseason roster they handed out, which is not official, but that's where this is coming from. They listed Antonio Carrera as a North Texas player without having announced him, but yet his agents called him a homegrown and still no announcement, so we don't really know what his status is either. So like there's some weirdness with this kid Luque. Having watched him in training, he's a better player than I would expect from North Texas. He plays left wing usually. They had him in the right wing in this game. Is he better than some of the right wings they have on their roster? Not really, but he's pretty young, so he's an interesting sort of prospect. I really hope they do have him signed for North Texas. I think he'd be a perfect kind of player to have there for this MLS2 thing. So,
all right, but nobody should be freaked out that they lost to the U20s 1-0.
I mean, I heard it was like 80% possession. I mean, 80% possession is ridiculous. That's not really possible, but they dominated the game from long stretches. They just couldn't get it past Carrera, who had 6 saves, which is exciting, okay. and you're missing all your real scorers and real forwards. I mean, look, it's Khalil El-Madkour, who maybe he has a little something, but he's a homegrown, and Luque is this trialist. You have no idea who he's really for, and Obrian's not really a 9, So
well, just to be clear, El-Madkour is a homegrown from another club, but was drafted by Dallas, right?
No, Dallas signed him as a homegrown. They traded for his homegrown rights from Philadelphia and signed him as a homegrown. So he's basically like, but he's a college age kid. So he's like, except that he's a left wing. You compare him to like a Jordan Cano or Brandon Cervania coming out of college like he did, or Reggie came out of college. That's the talent level you hope he has. Mm-hmm. He's a left wing nominally, but he's actually can play both sides.
All right. Well, where do they go next?
Orlando City. Play Orlando City in Orlando. I think it's on Saturday. So that should be a first team game, I would assume, and hopefully they'll actually give us information and
or
stream it.
Stream it or anything?
I don't know. I'm told that later in the spring, quote unquote, there would be some games streamed. I don't know whether that's this one coming up or whether it's the one that people can actually go to if you're a season ticket holder. I don't know which ones it's going to be. They don't like to stream them. I don't know why, but probably because it costs $50.
When are they back in the area training? Is that after next week?
I think so. I mean, certainly after the Orlando game. Dan, did the thing today say any better? Let's look at the training schedule. They travel back Saturday.
Okay.
Oh, actually, that's not right. No, I don't know when they come back. Saturday, it says they depart for IMG because I think that's the day they play Orlando. I'm looking at old schedule. Hold on.
Don't worry about it. Well, it's not a big deal. I just wondered. It's not an impressive preseason schedule anyway, and they're only 20? Are they 23 days away?
The opener's on the 26th. So yeah, 23 days.
Crazy. Okay, and then so how does that all play and square with North Texas? They've got their new coach, Buzz. Have you gotten a hug from him yet? Have you met him yet?
I have not. He's in Florida. He's in Florida.
Oh, is he also in Florida too?
Yeah. Their camp officially opens on the 7th. Their training camp. So, because I know of a couple of people that have been asked to come to it and start with them, kids that are trying to make that team, basically. Okay. So I imagine that's when they will have their own sessions on the side with all of their players, including right now they only have 5 players. So Derek Waldeck's still around, but he's not under contract, so that he'd be 6. They still got to add quite a few players. And that'll be really fun because then we'll get some ideas about what academy players are going to be involved, perhaps, who they might be looking at around town, perhaps. So, I enjoy that stuff almost as much as FC Dallas, so it'll be good.
How is your man crush?
It's really good. It's really good.
He's getting some. He's getting a rivalry with Matt Hedges. Matt was on the media call earlier in the week, and he was full of praise for Pa.
Yeah. Well, Pa's I believe, I don't want to speak completely out of turn, but I'm pretty sure he was a center back. And the day that I watched after he had arrived, he spent the whole session basically working with all the center backs on what I will, for lack of a better term, I will call micro positioning, which is like reading each other, like when one guy's stepping and the other guy's covering, and a lot of time on back four, team shape, moving together, shifting together, guys up, guys back. I don't think they've had that level of one-on-one coaching. Like Peter Lucine's been the defensive coach, but he was not a center back. It was a difference.
It's definitely been kind of the, we'll figure it out position. Like, they had a striker coaching strikers, a midfielder coaching midfielders. I think you had, Mikey Varis was coaching them before Lucine switched in, because Lucine was focused on the midfield for quite a while. It's good to have that. Matt had mentioned, that he's working with the defenders, and the guy was, national team quality for Norway. Had a good MLS career, and played elsewhere. That's a guy that Matt Hedges would have gone up against in his earlier career, and one of the guys who at the time was like, the one of the top defenders in the league. So yeah, it's a great mind to be able to pick from.
I asked, because he is spent a lot of time in Norway, I asked Lars Sivertsen, the journalist from London who is Norwegian, who is on the kick around on a regular basis, and he was totally familiar with Pa and was like, oh yeah, everybody in Norway loves him. Nobody ever has a bad thing to say about him. He interviews well. He's an amazing guy. You guys are going to love him to death. So thumbs up from a fellow Norwegian. Because I guess he moved to Norway when he was 8, is what Lars said.
Wow.
Yeah, from the Gambia.
So, okay. So North Texas starts off soon. The Buzz Man Crush continues. I am hoping somebody is videotaping the day you and Pa officially meet for the first time. I got to see this slow motion coming together man hug that takes place between the two of you. I just hope COVID regulations don't get in the way and prevent that from happening.
Well, he didn't know me at all. He's not going to want to give me a hug.
You know what? He is Pa. I have a feeling he will run up and hug you whether or not he knows you. But you know what? I also have this weird feeling he knows exactly who you are.
Well, we've been trading text messages. We're working on our secret handshake.
Oh.
You slated my play back in the day, and now I'm going to make you pay for it.
Maybe we'll be like oil and water. We won't get along. That'll be a shame. But
Dan, we also know that today word came down that the roster for the She Believes team has come out for the U.S. women's national team, which will be played in Frisco. When are the dates for that?
It is one day. It is the February 23rd, I believe. So it's just before the season starts.
Okay, so what we got today, I think, is going to disappoint some fans, because tickets are not inexpensive, yet you're not getting the big name players.
Well, it's been a weird tournament as well, because the She Believes Cup was always like teams within the top 15. And I want to say that every team is outside of the top 15. You've got... who have you got? I think it's Iceland, New Zealand, and not Norway, someone else from up that area. But it's not going to be quality games by any stretch of the imagination. And then Vlatko's gone very much looking towards players who can contribute in the future, which makes sense when half the majority of teams over 30. What that does mean is there's no Alex Morgan, there's no Megan Rapinoe, no Kristen Press, no Tobin Heath, no Julie Ertz. The one that bothered me the most was actually Trinity Rodman, the Rookie of the Year, Dennis Rodman's daughter, and now the highest paid player in NWSL, thanks to signing a contract just as the CBA was being agreed. She is on the practice squad only. He said he wants her kept around the national team in no pressure environments, so that a friendly cup that means absolutely nothing is apparently a pressure environment that's too great beyond playing in the NWSL Championship recently.
Czech Republic, by the way, is the fourth team.
Czech Republic. That was okay. Yeah, the Fighting Cobras. One big player you will see is Katerina Macario.
Oh yeah,
Stanford grad who would have been the number one pick and the absolute shit in NWSL, but went, no, I'm going to go play for Lyon. Thanks, deuces. She was Madison Haley's partner up front for Stanford. So, you expect her to do big things. Mallory Pugh will be the only real, I guess, known striker aside from her in what's going to be a relatively inexperienced squad for recent times. One other one, I think the only uncapped player will be, and I can't think what her name is. It's Aubrey. It was Bledsoe. She's just got married and changed the name, but she is the Washington Spirit goalkeeper who was the goalkeeper of the year in NWSL.
The only thing I want to throw in there is I would hope that somebody that knows somebody in this town would make a phone call and get Jaden Shaw a training invite, even if it's not a real cap. I just, like you do every once in a while, like a strong local kid, that you could bring him in and let him hang around. I think that would be really nice to see. I think she's a spectacular player that has a future.
Yeah. You suddenly brought back that one game. What game was it I watched her play in and I was completely blown away?
It's the Dallas Cup, wasn't it?
Was it the girls? Yeah, maybe that was the girls' final Dallas Cup. And I remember going, "Holy cow, she is next level." That would be great. And the other thing is, I know people are going to be disappointed that some of the big name players aren't there, but there is a tremendous value to being able to go watch a lot of these newer players, because the reality is that the odds are you're gonna get an opportunity to see the women that will be running this team for the next generation. So I know you want to see Morgan, and I know you want to see Megan and Kristen and all those, but man, that does sound fun to be able to watch these ladies as well.
I mean, Macario alone, there's a good chance you're looking at a future Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That would be great. Okay, boys, anything else? I know it's not 2 hours of Dallas talk. Is there anything else we need to get into?
That's a pretty quality FC Dallas talk, I have to say.
Just away from FC Dallas, that US Open Cup first round draw.
Yeah.
Dallas Kicks defeaters, whatever they want to be called these days, against Denton Diablos. That's going to be a really cool one at UNT. I'm definitely looking forward to going to that.
Yes, and I asked the question the other day. I think I asked it on the pod why Rayados did not. Now, Rayados put a team in the Alliance Cup, which was the tournament that just finished up last week with Dallas Soccer Alliance. That's their new tournament they put together, which, by the way, a team called Strikers won. They beat Lone Star in the final. It apparently turns out that Rayados, the team that made it way far in the Open Cup years ago, has aged up a bit. In fact, they're actually an over 30 team in the league they play in now, and they have not reloaded with younger players. So that's why they have not been playing in the Open Cup of late.
Yeah, defeaters kicks. I mean, they won in. I mean, they won qualifiers and won games. Like NPSL and USL 2 or whatever. Those leagues all chose to use their standings to determine who got in, which is why Denton's in as the defending NPSL champions. But kicks had to come through. Defeaters kicks had to come through the local qualifying rounds, just like Rayados used to always have to do. They won. So whatever they had to win, I don't remember what it was, but they won their way into the Open Cup. So they've kind of picked up that mantle, if you will. And by the way, I don't know if you know much about Defeaters Kicks. Defeaters, obviously, Peter, you'll know, is a longtime girls' academy around here.
Oh, yeah.
And Kicks was a newer up-and-coming boys club that was really doing some nice things. And they've merged those two groups together. And now they run a men's open sort of type team, like a high-level team that's obviously this team that's gotten into the Open Cup. And they're not quite to the level of Solar or FC Dallas in terms of academy, but they're real close. I mean, they got to be pushing Dallas Texans now for that spot as the third best academy in the Metro, in my opinion. So good on them that they have gotten in, and that game against Denton, where Denton obviously was on paper is the favorite, but when you're talking about a single game off knockout, when the Denton probably won't be in season, I don't think by that point. So anything's going to happen in that game. I'm going to try to go for sure, because I think it's sport local soccer, right? It's going to be phenomenal.
And when is the game?
Oh, you caught me. March something. I didn't look it up. That's my bad. I got it right here in front of me.
I haven't pulled up. It is on
22nd.
Yeah, you could beat me to it. 7:30.
Up and then at the UNT's soccer field, which is where the Dabbles used to play. Nice little facility. Encourage everybody to go to that. Support local soccer.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Dan, there wasn't enough Dan in this pod. I'm sad to report. And that's my fault.
It's just some straight up xenophobia. With that United States men's national team heavy content.
Is there some Luton Town news you'd like to share with us or anything like that? I see you're in the top 10.
Brilliant right now. We're 3 points out the playoffs with a game in hand.
Is there any chance you get promoted?
Yeah. There's a small
chance. Would you put money on it?
No. I mean, maybe for shits and giggles. But yeah, we're couldn't have dreamed of being in the position we're in right now. It's great. It's something I hope that a lot of the FC Dallas faithful get to experience, that giving up hope, and then suddenly it's like, oh wow, it's there and it's not being taken away.
Well, good luck to Luton Town, the Hatters. In a worst case scenario, maybe Watford gets relegated and you get to play Watford twice this season in the championship.
I just want to get relegated anyway. I hate the scum, obviously.
Obviously.
This is Hubert Tito, and I'm here to tell you that Third Degree the podcast is brought to you by Soccer 90. Shop Soccer 90 for all of your FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Watch for new MLS gear landing the entire month of February, as we all anxiously await to see these new kits. All Third Degree listeners receive 20% off their purchase when they use the code Third Degree at checkout on soccer90.com. Some exclusions may apply.
Well, thanks for joining us, and I apologize, not enough Dan. That's my fault.
That's all right. There's always next time.
Okay. And Buzz, going once, going twice. You got anything else you want to throw out there?
No. Thanks, Pappy Check, for the music.
Yes, thanks, Pappy Check, for the music. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious Fan. We'll speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Choose Jesus. Jesus.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.